The most important thing to sailing in those conditions, in my opinion, is like managing windward heel in your boat. If you imagine my cell phone is like the platform of the boat, I'm sailing downwind on port tack and a little heel to windward, like 15 degrees or something like that. And because of the windward heel, like if you steer one way or the other, it's either going to drive the bow down or it's going to pull the bow up. And that is because like the control system can only manage your boat ride height so well. Like that steering like up into the wind to pull the bow down or steering away from the wind to pull the bow up is really critical to be able to manage your ride height as you go through waves. In terms of like leeward heel, like theoretically that would work the same way. Like if your heel's a leeward, like you could steer down into the wind or steer away from the wind and it'll pull your bow down. But I think that it's like if you find yourself doing that, you can very easily like steer too far down away from the wind and then your sail's stalling. And then it's very difficult to like switch away from that and move from the leeward heel all the way to the windward heel. That's like a really big change of like load, pressure, and sail to be able to make that transition. So I think you always want to be windward heel to some amounts, and it varies based off of like how aggressive the sea state is around you and how hard you're pushing it. But then the only time you ever heel to windward is the only time you ever heel to leeward is when you're doing a jibe. A lot of it comes back to the heel through the maneuver. Because again, like windward heel and steering with heel is the way that you control your ride height. So the tricky thing about jibes is you heel to windward, sailing downwind on port, and then somehow you got to get from heel to windward on the other side going this direction. So I think what's really important is managing that transition of heel to windward on one side to either flat or like heel to windward on the other side. In as flat surface condition, like flat of a wave state as possible. Because basically when you're sailing along like this and you go for the jibe, there's a section where you're like sort of unprotected, going from here to there, where you don't really have your heel to be able to control ride height. So what I always try to do is like sailing downwind, I decide I want to jibe, I like shorten my wand and look for a section of waves that it's going to allow me to make the maneuver. Then I basically like stand up, move into the boat, and try to like transition it to being slightly heels leeward in as flat of a wave state as possible. Like I said earlier, I also like shorten the wand as much as possible to just try to get the boat low when it's doing that transition. And then ideally, I want to get the boat set to slight leeward heel while the boat's pointed directly downwind or somewhere close directly downwind. And then I also have my head underneath the boom so I can look at the wave state on like the new jibe as I'm exiting. Assuming you've like gone and done that first half of the jibe with a reasonable amount of speed, then the second half of the jibe should be like relatively like doing that first half really well makes the second half of the jibe a lot easier, because then you can kind of like be sitting with your body in the middle of the boat. You haven't fully gotten to the other side yet, and then you can kind of steer with the boat heel to the side to be able to get through waves. And assuming you had gone into the jibe with a lot of speed, you can hang out in that mode for quite a while and then figure out like an appropriate time to fully move your body to the new side. I think that like if you are going too slow into the jibe, the first half might be easier because you have more control while you're like moving your body into the boat. And the second half of the jibe becomes more difficult